Yes, we are live. Cheers, Chorizy.
Cheers.
Happy Black Friday. I know I usually do these whiteboard learning videos on the solo tip, but I wanted to bring my man Chorizy-E in to help me out with this one. Wanted to hit on a few things before we got to it, too.
I basically had nothing else to do, so I was like, I'm going to come over and drink. And he's like, well, now you got to do a video.
Chorizy may or may not know anything about any of this, but he'll tell you that he does.
Which back in the day when I came over to someone's place and I had to do a video, it was a lot weirder than this. So I'm quite all right with what we're doing right now.
Do you want to tell them the latest development about the podcast?
Oh, yeah. The podcast is up on iTunes now. We were waiting a while for that approval. Hilariously enough, even though we're listed as explicit,
yes.
I think my swearing does the trick there.
For sure.
In our description of one of the episodes, it says baseball and bullshit, and they star out everything except the B and the T. It's pretty. I thought it was pretty funny. I was laughing when I finally saw it. But yeah, it's up there. I think the only two that are left that haven't approved yet are Google Play and Spotify.
And we've heard the Spotify one is a long gestation period,
it takes
right?
a while, I guess. I don't know. They let barren plains up there, so their standard of goodness is not too high. So I assume we'll be up pretty soon there. And then if you're on Google Play, it'll be there too. Just waiting these things out. We'll have 52 episodes up before one of those approves us, but whatever. We're also doing Black Friday sale today. So if you want to go pay $6.66 for something like this, you can go do that right now on our site, fromthe108.bigcartel.com. We also have some deals on koozies and other shirts. Most of the other shirts, if you want one, go now because we're running out of sizes. The Jersey Demolition that he has on there.
Yeah, this bad boy.
There's only
almost sold out.
couple sizes left. I think there's only 2 or 3 shirts actually left. So that one's almost done. The OG 108 shirt with the batter logo, with the bottle logo, I should say. That one, I think there's 2 or 3 left. They're only available in white now. The last of the black are gone. And then the Hot Stove Champs. That one is also, I think there's 2 shirts left, only available in white. The black shirts are gone on that as well. So get over there, pick up the scraps of those. But we do have these hats. They're up there. We got koozies, we got keychains. You get the Chorizy 108 starter pack. That's on sale too now. So get over there, get some stuff. We'll send you some extra goodies. My Sock Summer always takes care of people who spend a bunch in there. So
that's right.
So get all you need. Someone ordered a dozen koozies today. It was awesome.
Yes,
I was
did
very
see that
impressed
order.
by that order. I was like, one for every in the 12-pack. I love it.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. And cheers to you, the person who did order that. That's fucking crazy. Couple notes about the merchandise. The Slayer 108 shirt is not only the most comfortable 108 shirt we've made, and my favorite design, but for fat guys, it's the slimmingest one, okay?
It is.
Before I put this on, you could see my entire fupa just hanging out there, and for everyone to enjoy my spare tire. And I put this shirt on, I look like Brad Pitt. I look like Brad Pitt in Fight Club.
You're carved of wood.
I am ripped right now, okay? And the other thing is the Chorizy starter pack, the 108 starter pack, that is perfect for tailgates.
Oh, yeah.
You got the bottle opener, you got the koozie, you're all ready to go. So everyone go out there and get that. Get that now while it's cheap, because the prices will go back up, and especially as the season's coming on, it'll go back up. And we want to make a little room in our inventory to start doing some new things.
I should also mention what we're drinking today.
Absolutely.
I walked into Benny's this afternoon, not really looking for anything in particular. That's just the kind of thing I do on a Friday afternoon when I walk into Benny's and see what I'm going to drink. And as I'm walking around the beer section, I see this guy unloading all these bottles onto a nice display, and it just so happened to be all of the 2018 and 2017 Bourbon County Stout that they had rolling around. So Goose Island Bourbon County Stout.
That's beautiful.
It's very delicious. So they let you get one of like the 2017, and then the 2018 they let you get a few more. So I grabbed a couple of those. We're going to drink through at least this one We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. We'll see how long this video goes.
We might also come back and do one more short video, too, if we're feeling it today.
You never know what kind of vids you're going to get out of us.
That's right.
So I might have a shirt on, I might not. You're going to see what happens.
I'm feeling slim now, so I'm ready to do whatever.
I love it.
I'm ready to go
let's get into it then.
Let's do it. So I normally do these teaching videos, as I was saying, by myself. Get the whiteboard out. We're not going to do any math today, but we got some topics on the whiteboard. Chorizy-E is perfect to do this with me because we talk about a lot of this stuff on a regular basis. No My Sock Summer today. He's away with family, not available for this. But so we're going to talk about trade value. Now, I see a lot of stuff on Twitter, Facebook, everywhere where people congregate and talk about White Sox baseball. And it's weird because materially all of you fuck up trade value. And you shouldn't, because you should remember when you were kids at lunchtime and you were trading your oatmeal pie for Twinkies. And you knew to make a trade and you could figure out an equal value and no one really got cheated. Maybe you got a tiny edge on that. Maybe
oatmeal cream pie for Twinkie. You've got to give up 26 oatmeal cream pies for one Twinkie.
Totally disagree.
What?
The oatmeal cream pie is delicious.
Oh my god.
It's a tasty treat. I think it's...
Yeah, you know what kids love? Oatmeal.
It's like a cookie, though. Come on.
I know it's a cookie.
Got the creamy filling. It's
but think about like oatmeal raisin cookies, right?
Yeah.
When's the last time you picked up an oatmeal raisin cookie, bit into it, and weren't disappointed that it was chocolate chip? Like you're like, well, I thought this was a chocolate chip cookie, and now I'm biting raisins. Fuck this. I'm upset. Oatmeal is terrible.
Well, you picked the wrong part. The oatmeal's not the disappointing part. The raisin versus the chocolate's the disappointing part.
It's all disappointing.
No. It's all totally disagree. So we're going to go over a few points here for you. When you're considering thinking about should the White Sox make this trade, or what trade value does this guy have, consider some of these things when you're going through it. So the first topic we have up there is talking about present-day value for present-day value. You rarely see this sort of thing. You rarely see a team trade current shortstop to another team for their current shortstop.
Only the Mariners do this shit.
Occasionally you'll see it, but it's very rare you see it. Mostly because you have reputational risk on the line. If you make the bad end of the trade of the present value guys, you're shit out of luck. You're in big fucking trouble. You're probably not going to get another GM job. Okay? Another thing to remember about present day value. When you're valuing someone on your team, okay? Let's say Avisail Garcia. Say you don't think a lot of Avisail Garcia. Chances are, the broader public, albeit not just the fan public, but the broader public that is in charge of making trades, they probably also don't think too highly of him.
They actually probably think less highly of him. Like, so that's the thing you have to remember. You have some kind of attachment to these players, right? It's just a natural thing to become a little bit emotionally attached to the players on your team.
Yep.
So you're going to value them probably even higher than anyone else would. So you have to take that into account when you're trying to trade these guys. And Avi Garcia, we've been with him since we traded for him.
Yep.
And he's like supposed to be this 5-tool guy who's going to, at one point, he's going to break out. And so we have that thought along with him. Most other people that are looking at him, most other GMs are not looking at that stuff. They're looking at what has he done?
Right.
What is his current value? How does he fit on my roster? And as they look at that, he becomes less valuable than what we kind of think of him as, of what his potential could be, because he's already in his late 20s.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, just assume about what you think of someone. Anyone with a reasonable mind is only going to think about them maybe 10% better or 10% worse. It's going to be in that window. So if you don't think that highly, or you know the person's a really good player, well, the other, you're going to get a lot back from the other team in that. In theory, I guess. The second thing is the more quantity, the more excess quality you need. Trees, you want to explain this?
I would love for you to explain this.
Let's just say
you worded this strangely.
Let's just say you're going to trade for some superstar. Let's say like Chris Sale.
Sure.
Okay? The Boston Red Sox needed to provide more in future value for Chris Sale than Chris Sale was worth right this second, because they have risk. And there's more certainty in what Chris Sale does tomorrow than what these guys are going to do 6 years from now, 5 years from now, 3 years from now, whatever. So when you're putting together your plan to trade for Mike Trout, you can't just put in all these bad guys together and throw them out there. Also, one player doing a lot is better than 6 players doing that same amount. That shouldn't need to be explained. You have a limited number of slots to put players in out there, so you really can't. You don't want to like sort of spread that value.
This
out.
is the current. You see this all the time in people saying, "Let's trade for this guy," and it's like 7 or 8 guys that no one cares about, and like the other GM just doesn't pay attention to baseball. And I was like, "Oh, 8 guys, that must equal this one good guy."
Right.
And so you're trying to say that like if I give you a big pile of shit, it's better than a little pile of shit. It's all shit. So you want to give some top quality guys, but you have to understand that the other team is taking a way bigger risk than you are because you're trading for like a known commodity, right? Like you look at someone like here's a good example. When the Cubs were trading away Matt Garza, no one thought Matt Garza was like a superstar or something like that. Like you kind of knew what Matt Garza was, and so the Rangers wanted him. So they gave guys that were kind of good prospects, but had a lot of risk associated to them. Mike Holt had his whole eye thing.
Yep.
You know, that they were worried about his vision, and that turned out to actually be legit. Like, he never was very good. He was never a very good hitter in the pros after he had the issues with his eyes.
Yep.
Now, C.J. Edwards, on the other hand, was in that trade, and he was also a risky guy because this guy was not a sought-after prospect. He was drafted very low, and he just happened to be doing well in the minors. So you look at it and you go like, okay, this guy might be something, but there's a lot of risk there because he might just have had like a fluke year and a half in the minors. And that said, he only ever became a reliever, right? It's not like he's a starting pitcher.
Right, that's right.
It's not like he's a closer. You know, he's a solid reliever.
Correct.
I would like to have him on the Sox.
Sure.
You know, I definitely would like that guy.
Yeah.
But when that trade was happening, there was definitely a risk that he would never become anything. Correct. And there was a risk that Mike Holt, who was the centerpiece of that trade, would never become anything, and he didn't. He never became anything. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing you got to look at. Like, yeah, this is an okay guy. This is a pretty good guy that we're trying to trade. We got to take back a lot in prospects, but also a lot in risk to kind of move this guy along. And that's the kind of trade we're talking about here.
That's correct. And to marry point 1 and point 2 together, we all know Carson Fulmer stinks. You can't throw him in a trade. He's worth less to everybody else than he is to the White Sox right now. You got to hope and pray. He goes to Driveline. He figures it out and becomes a player, and then the values are fine. So, number 3, which is sort of what we're getting on with the excess over here, is current. A lot of teams, what they like to do, to trade current value for future value, which is the White Sox did in the Chris Sale deal, the Jose Quintana deal. And exactly as Chorizy was explaining, there's an appropriate amount of risk in those deals. Those deals will end up only looking bad if you have a guy pop who's a superstar from a trade in which you trade a middle-of-the-road guy. Or for the White Sox, if you get one guy as a superstar out of that Chris Sale deal and another guy who's a pretty good player. But for the most part, by the time that happens, by the time those guys come up, the GMs might have moved on and everything. So these are the safest trades to make from both sides of it. Because Rick Hahn can deal Chris Sale tomorrow, and there'll be a handful of people that will say, that's a shitty trade, we shouldn't have done that in the moment. For the most part, everyone's going to hang on and wait for 6 years and see what happens, right? And by then, all your fervor, you might take it out on him, but he might be working for some other team by then.
Yeah, I mean, an interesting thing there is, like, when you look at this, is the Sox made a lot of these trades kind of all at once, and the Chris Sale one probably looks the worst right now.
Yeah.
Right? So you traded Chris Sale, and you got Moncada, who's a bit of a risk. Right?
Yeah.
Because, like, he had come up for the Red Sox, and he played badly when he came up for the Red Sox.
That's correct.
You've got Kopech, who is a great arm, but not a lot of secondary pitches, right? So there was questions when they were trading him, is this guy even going to be a starter?
Right.
Right? Even when we got him, there was people going, this is going to be our closer of the future.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. Yeah.
And then you've got Basabe as kind of the throw-in piece.
Right.
And he was probably the riskiest. Mm-hmm. He's probably showing a more promise than anyone kind of thought he would, right? So that's kind of weird. But then you do the flip side of this, and you go like, we're trading Quintana to the Cubs,
Right.
and the Cubs have a couple guys, one who they think is ready to go, but was in Single A. Let's not forget that Eloy was in Single A.
Eloy was ostensibly, he was in Single A, and he was ostensibly blocked.
Right, and they everyone thought the world of him.
Yeah.
You talk to Cubs fans, they were like, he's ready for the pros right now, and it's like, that dude's in Single A.
Right.
But they, that was the feeling, and rightfully so. But that's a risk when you got a guy who's still in Single A. It's like us thinking about Luis Robert right now.
That's
right.
correct.
We think the world of him, but he's still in Single A. There's a chance that things don't go well. Dylan Cease, I think the Cubs had already kind of written him off as a reliever.
It seemed that way.
It felt like they were building him to be a reliever, and luckily, I think our front office, in this case, very wisely saw that he could be a starter. And we still haven't gotten there. So, like, you don't know that that's correct yet. But in that trade, there was definitely risk for the Sox going, we don't know what these guys are going to be. They're still in low levels, but we're going to give up this guy who we have a lot of control over. And the Cubs will have him for many years, through their playoff years. So, I mean, that could look really bad on the Sox if Quintana goes out there and pitch like he pitched for the Sox.
For sure.
And then these guys never develop, right?
That's
but
right.
The opposite looks like it's happening, but nevertheless, those were possibilities. Those still are possibilities. Quintana could have a great year next year, and everyone on the Sox could regress. It's possible.
Sure.
So I mean,
sure it is.
You don't know what you have here because, like we're saying, is these are this is future value against current known value.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. And if you were to look at these things in isolation, the individual trades, you could probably say right now, okay, as of right now, the Red Sox are winning that trade because they've gotten a ton out of Chris Sale.
The World Series, right?
They're in the World
That's
Series.
what you did it for. You got it.
And he's been terrific those years. And Makata's come up and been an average player. And Kopech's stock has risen, and so has Basabe's, but not enough to make you think, oh, you won that trade. But with the Eloy and Cease trade, their fair values, their market values have gone up substantially. Well, even Eloy, you knew Eloy was a good player, but it's gone up a lot since
you wouldn't trade that back.
You would not trade that back, exactly. You would not redo that. Those are a healthy way to look at them. But an even healthier way to look at all of this is bundle all the trades together and see what they end up coming. Because like we're talking about, the White Sox side of the trades have a lot of risk. So if you look at one or two individually, they may crush one of them. They may get killed on another one, but you got to look in as a pile and say, okay, how does it look in total? What do we get back for what we sort of gave away?
Yeah, and I think a good back to number two, the quantity and quality thing. A good indicator of the quantity piece is what the Sox did trading Adam Eaton. Right? There were a lot of questions around Lucas Giolito, which there still are.
Yep.
And so the Nats were making him the centerpiece of the trade, but that obviously wasn't enough for the Sox. So they wanted more quantity here, right? So they said, well, you've got this guy who you're looking at as like a fourth or fifth starter, and you already have five starters.
Or a bullpen arm, potentially.
Yeah, in Lopez.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Dane Dunning, who's totally blocked, right? None of these guys, if you talk to people around the Nationals, they weren't like, oh man, I'm just waiting for these guys to come up. They had their staff was stocked. Like there was no room for these guys anyways.
Right.
You know, we'll talk about this in the next pod, but Tanner Roark, he might get non-tendered. He probably would walk into the Sox and be like their third best starter. So like
third or second best. Right?
They have a ton of pitching there. So to them, that's kind of their excess quantity that they're giving off for an Adam Eaton, which they didn't have. Right? They have Michael Taylor. They're going to lose a Bryce Harper. Right. They need that kind of outfield depth that they didn't have.
That's right.
So it made sense for both sides to do this.
And at that time, too, they didn't know Juan Soto was going to shoot the moon like he has and become a superstar.
Who knew that?
They had to try to fill that in.
And so, from the Sox side, Giolito's probably not become what they wanted him to be. You know, he's not the centerpiece of that trade.
Right.
Lopez probably is. And now you've got a chance with Dunning too to get another starter out of that trade. And imagine if you got, a third and fifth starter for your right fielder that you weren't going to be able to use during these down years. So I think those are the kinds of deals you're going to make, right? And that's where you go quality and quantity kind of mixed in together to build something like that.
That's true. And that's the example, too. Adam Eaton's a 5-win player, but what you were supposedly getting in that deal were a bunch of 3-win. Giolito was maybe expected to be a 3.5-win pitcher, and Lopez maybe 2 wins, and so you're getting an excess there because you divvy it up into more pieces. The last section, sometimes you could trade for other commodities. Okay, and when I say that, I'm talking mostly about money, not just in the old-fashioned. We traded that guy for our buddy cash considerations. Wally's money, that'll pop up a lot too. But some of what I'm talking about too is contracts. So a team will want to get rid of some money on a contract. Guy's getting paid a lot of money. You may take that guy on, and for that money, in the switching of trade, you will get additional players along with them, some that could sort of help you in the future. So when you look at those, they'll look weird, lopsided because of just the players involved. But then when you realize, also we have to pay $50 million of a contract here, then you say, okay, that's why. You're paying that for that. Sort of what the White Sox did to get Joakim Soria in the offseason. Everyone said, they traded Jake Peter, and they turned him into this good reliever. Not really. They had to put a player in there, so it didn't look like you were buying a contract, and they bought a $10 million contract to Soria, which they paid $7 million of, and they traded off, and they ended up getting back Cody Medeiros, who I'm going to eventually call Big Kahuna Burger when he gets into the majors because he's Hawaiian.
There's one that's going to be this year that's going to be interesting like this, right? So if you look at what's going on in the hot stove right now, the big name for being traded right now is Zach Greinke. And the Diamondbacks are looking to cut payroll. Right? They're not shy about saying this. They've already said they expect whatever team takes Greinke to take on the entire contract, which is about 3 years, $90 million.
That's correct.
Right? But here's the thing. Taking on a contract like that is beneficial to the buyer in two ways. You don't have to trade as big of a prospect, right? You could get kind of like a middling prospect. We can't give them like Spencer Adams and do that, who's already not protected.
No, you need an actual good prospect.
But you could get a guy who's somewhere, a good example, I think, high risk but good player, like a Jake Berger and maybe someone else. You could throw and say we'll take $90 million on, but we'll get Greinke.
Right.
There's probably like a Blake Rutherford or something.
That's
like that.
Exactly the guy I was thinking.
It's probably
you could
better.
probably do that if you took the whole money.
Probably a better example.
Right.
But so you do that, and then you take on that money. But here's the thing: it's still beneficial to the buyer in that case because they only have to pay for 3 years. Right after 3 years, you're done. You're out of that contract. Right? If you pick up a Patrick Corbin this winter or a Dallas Keuchel, you're definitely looking at 5 or 6 years. Right? So this is a better option for some teams. Right? You could see a team like the Brewers or a team like the Yankees who are kind of in their window right now and go, a 3-year high contract guy is way better than a 5-year slightly lower per year contract guy. So I would assume, especially because there's a little bit of history there, that the Brewers go aggressively to get Zach Greinke and take on that money. I think they realize if they're winning, the money's there.
Yeah, that's right.
And if it's not, Bud Selig will change some rule or some shit to give them more money. But at the end of the day, I think that's a good example of you don't have to give up the best prospect because you're giving them something else, which is relief from their horribly high payroll right now. And if I were the Sox, I'd be getting in there and talking about Greinke.
For sure.
Because 3 years is kind of nice in what they're doing, especially when you got guys like Kopech, where you're like, I'd love to take more time to get him back healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's a guy there. You could pay a little bit more, and you could have a really good pitcher in there, and at the same time, you know, maybe you up the prospect and say, okay, but you know, give me a Jake Lamb or someone who also has risk.
Right.
You know, so you give a couple middling prospects, and you take on a big contract,
Bunch of salary,
and you take on the guy whose body doesn't work properly, and see what you get. So I would love if Rick Hahn was in on that with the idea. Maybe we throw in a couple other guys that will help out. You know, I'm not saying take on, you know, Upton's contract too. I'm just saying, you know, look at a guy like Lamb or something, and try and get something like that.
All right, I think that's all we've got. I think we flew through this. Talked to you about our Black Friday sale. Get this shirt right here, $6.66.
Oh man, it's a great shirt.
It's a terrific shirt.
I
It's so
shirt.
cheap. I can't believe we're putting it that cheap out there.
I'll admit, I have 2 of those shirts. Mainly because I don't wash my clothes very often, as you could probably tell by my scent if you come to the 108. But yeah, no, I love that shirt. So I actually got I told my summer, hey, give me an extra one of those shirts. I like to have the rotation of 2.
For sure.
Because I like that shirt that much. Plus, I'm a huge Slayer fan. So, I mean, like, I guess you couldn't have guessed that by looking at me.
No way.
But yeah, so we're going to finish up our drinks here.
Absolutely.
We've got another one of these, so it's possible we'll get back on a little bit and we'll talk about something else.
We got some other bullshit we could talk about.
And we see some comments at the bottom there. We can't see them because we're blind as shit because we're old men.
Yes.
But we'll take a look at those and we'll respond to you guys.
Yeah, sounds good.